Alright guys, in this video we're going to go ahead and create a custom component in Angular. Now that we've looked at what they are and why we use them and some of the code. So what I'm going to do here, we have our Angular app and we've already generated this a couple lectures ago. But if you haven't been following along, then you can create it with ng new and then Angular app. Alright, if you run that, it'll create a brand new Angular application, and that's what we have here. So in the source folder, you see the app folder here and then the main app component TS files. So that's basically the root component. We also have the template, the HTML file. That's what we see in the browser when we run this. Let's go ahead and run it with ng serve, and we'll do -- open so that the browser opens automatically. And then what we see in the browser is this HTML file. Alright, so what I want to do is just clear everything out of here. So let's just get rid of all this HTML and just put in an H1 here, and we'll just say Angular app and save. And if we look at the browser now, you'll see we just have Angular app. So what I want to do is create a new custom component. Okay, now this is a sandbox application. We're not going to build something that is, a fully working application here in the next couple lectures. We're going to just look at certain concepts, and then later on, we're going to build some projects using those concepts. So normally what I would do is I generate the component with the CLI, and that would create the files for us. It would add it to the app module. It would add the basic code, but we're going to go ahead and create it from scratch just so you can get a better idea of what's included. So in the app folder, I'm going to create a new folder called components. And then what I like to do is have just a separate folder for every component I create. So I'm going to create a folder called user. That's going to be the name of our component. And then the name of the file, the TS file, is going to be user.component.ts. Okay, TS for TypeScript. And this is the general format that you want to use for your component file names. So just like the main app component, we need to import component from Angular/core, and then we need to create a decorator. So we do that with @component, and a decorator is part of TypeScript. It basically allows us to just add extra information onto our class, onto our component, and we need a selector. And I'm going to call this app-user. Now the reason I'm using app- is because when you generate a component with the CLI, this is the format it uses for your selector. It puts the app- in front of whatever you call it. Alright, and then I'm just going to put the template right in the TS file. I'm not going to use a separate template yet. So let's just do, we'll put an H2, and we'll just say John Doe. Alright, and then down here we need to create our class. So we'll say class, and then we need to call this user component. Okay, so it should be Pascal case, which is going to be, it's going to start with an uppercase letter, and then every word after that will start with an uppercase. Now just creating the class won't work because we need to access it from outside, so we need to make sure we put export before it. Okay, that'll make it available outside of this file. So let's go ahead and save this. Now remember, I said before that when we create a component, we have to add it to the app.module.ts file. This is basically the meeting place for all your components and services and everything else. So we're going to import it, just like you can see above, the main app component was imported. So user component, which is the name of the class, and then it's in the components folder, and then users, and then user, and then user.component. We have some IntelliSense in VS Code for it because we installed the Angular extension. And if you didn't install it, you can see it's called Angular v5 Snippets by John Papa. But depending on when you're watching this, it may be version 6 or 7, but it's the one by John Papa. Whoop, don't want to close that. I want to close this. Alright, so next thing we need to do is the user component we brought in, we need to add to the declarations. So we're just going to put that here, and we should be all set with this file. So we'll save it, and we'll close that up. Now the last thing we need to do before we can display it in the browser is embed it into the main app component template. So we're going to go in here, and we're going to say app-user tab. I'm using Emmet, so that gave me this basically it's basically like a custom HTML tag, and we'll go ahead and save this. And now if I open up the browser, you'll see John Doe. All right, so we've created a component, we've added it to app.module, and then we embedded it into our main app component. Now, as I said, we don't have to put the template directly in the TS file. In fact, that's not really good practice. You usually want to have a separate template for it. So what we would do is, in addition to the TS file, we would create a user.component.html file, and then go back to our TS file, and instead of defining template right here, we want to define template URL. In fact, I'll just comment this out so you guys still have this, so you know that that's possible. And we'll just go right here and define template URL. And then we want to use / because we're in the same directory, and we want to go to user.component.html and save. Now if I go back to the browser, you can see John Doe is gone because there's nothing in this HTML file. So let's go ahead and put an H2 in here. We'll say John Doe, make sure we save it, and now you'll see that it's back. So it's just better to separate the markup from the main TS file. Now if we wanted to have some custom CSS, we could also add here style URLs, and we could put in actually an array of files because we can have more than one. So let's just say user.component.css. Okay, so we're getting an error down here, and that's because there is no CSS file. You can see can't resolve user component CSS, so we'll have to create that. So we'll say new file user.component.css, and now that error is gone. And if I wanted to, let's say, take that H2 and we'll say color red and save, let's go back to our browser, and you can see that now that H2 is red. All right, I'm going to get rid of that though, but we'll keep the CSS file there just in case we want to add any styles. Now you could also put the styles right in this file just like you could the template. So you could do that by just saying styles and then opening up some brackets, and we're actually going to put some backticks in here, which are to the left of the number 1 key, and let's put H2, and we'll say color blue. This should have a comma right here. So if we do that and save, now you'll see we have a blue color. So it's up to you what you want to do, but I would suggest putting this stuff separately. All right, but I'm just going to comment this out so that you have it. So let's save that, and it should go back to black. All right, so now that we've gone over creating a basic component with a template, with some CSS if you want, in the next video we're going to take a look at data binding and string interpolation, okay, as well as creating properties and methods with our component.